turn it on.
Call to order the regular meeting of the Stokes County Board of Commissioners for Monday, May 22nd, 2023 at 2 p.m. And we'll start with the invocation. Please stand. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many privileges you've given us. We thank you for the privilege of serving the people in elected positions, and we ask for your strength, guidance, and wisdom as we make decisions that are best for our public. Please lead, guide, and direct us as we go into the coming weeks and months and to this budget session that we're getting ready to do. In your most gracious name, we ask it. Amen. Join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. Okay, the next item on our agenda will be the presentation of the fiscal year 2023-2024 recommended budget by the County Manager, Amber Brown.
Thank you. So, in accordance with the North Carolina Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, I hereby present and submit for your review and adoption the recommended budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024. This budget meets the statutory and administrative obligations to prepare and present a balanced budget for the consideration of the Board of Commissioners. The total recommended budget for Stokes County for fiscal year 23-24 is $54,936,166. This is a 1.09% or $594,800 increase over the approved last year's budget amount of $54,341,366. Based on budget guidance given, this recommendation contains no ad valorem tax increase, with the current tax rate remaining at 31 cents per $100 assessed value for General County, 31 cents for school current expense fund, and 4 cents for dedicated education fund, and 8 cents for all fire districts. Remaining at the current tax rates, this will mark the 9th consecutive year with no county property tax rate increase. This recommendation uses $6,407,080 from the county's general fund balance to balance the budget. The upcoming year's budget presented a wide array of challenges, many of which have been present in the past, but many are also new. The challenge to recruit and retain qualified employees continues to persist, with both public and private sectors experiencing employee shortages nationally. Inflation that has affected all organizations is also affecting our county and citizens, with no signs of slowing down or decreasing. The number of expenditures and services provided have grown largely, and partnered with relatively steady revenues, the revenues are not projected to cover the increases. The budget presented provides for departments to maintain the current standards of operating with minimal increases in service, personnel, or equipment. More information about the financial state of the county and the current budget outlook will be provided in a later section. Budget guidance. Prior to department heads submitting budgets and the formation of this recommended budget, a budget work session was held with the current county manager, assistant county manager, and finance director and assistant finance director, where the Board of Commissioners provided goals and priorities for how the budget should be directed. The following specific budget guidance items were provided: no tax increases, maintain the fund balance percentage at 17 to 18%, maintain last year's approved budget amount for the school system, maintain the current level of services, focus on providing resources to public safety. A pivotal point. While preparing this budget recommendation and combing through department requests, the previously mentioned budget guidance items were used to ensure that the recommended budget followed the expectations and wishes of the board. The board has historically made 2 points very clear about what guided the budget, and the same is true for this year: no tax increase, and to maintain the general fund balance at around 17 to 18%. While the budget staff and I made every attempt to follow these requested guidelines as we normally do, this year there was no other choice but to stray from these goals. When last year's budget, fiscal year 22 and 23, was considered and approved, the same guidelines were given to not increase taxes and to maintain the fund balance at the advised percentages. These two goals were met, but only with the support and additional funding that was received through the federal government's American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, where approximately $6.4 million was utilized for a variety of equipment and large one-time expenses that county departments requested in the budget. Even with this hefty sum of ARPA money that provided additional revenues for the fiscal year 22-23 budget we are currently operating in, an additional $3.6 million had to be pulled from the county's general fund balance in order to balance the budget and provide for current expenses. If not for the ARPA federal funding last year, we would have been faced with the situation that we now find ourselves in. In recent years, starting in 2017, a large sum of the county's general fund balance has been needed in order to balance the budget. For fiscal year 17-18, $1,293,800 was used. For fiscal year 18-19, $2,961,656 was used. For fiscal year 19-20, $4,093,376 was used. Fiscal year 2021, $4,231,298. Fiscal year 21-22, $3,257,170. Fiscal year 22-23, $3,636,186. While it is impossible to detail every expenditure and service that has been increased or added since 2017, I can provide a list of larger expenditures that have taken place since the last budget, fiscal year 22-23, was approved to current time. Although these actions were needed, these are requests that have been approved outside of the budget cycle and funded within the past year, starting in July of 2022. Hopefully these expenses, most that are reoccurring, will better help detail the increase in expenditures and current expense that we continue to fund. Personnel increases in the Planning and Inspections Department, amount estimated to $20,716. DSS and Health Department State Salary Plan Corrections, $34,395 to correct that. Human Resources salary increase to prevent crucial employee from leaving, $10,000. Addition of 5 new positions in the Animal Control Department, which made up of 2 new animal control officers, 2 new animal shelter attendants, and 1 new dispatcher/office clerk with fringes and benefits, $219,710, not including operating costs like equipment and uniforms. Sheriff's Department and jail salary increases, 4.5% for all employees, 9.5% for detectives, equaling $169,981. And this does not include amounts for part-time hour increases. Hiring of contracted IT consultant and advisor, $105,000. Fringes was not included in that cost. Excess comp time payout for employees estimated at $56,000 after it was changed from 240 to 75 hours starting July 1, 2022. With those items being reviewed, hopefully it will give a glimpse of why we are now dealing with the choice at hand and are straying from budget guidance. The total dollar amount of all requests by county departments for the fiscal year 23-24 is $59,328,387. The tax rate would need to be raised 14 cents in order to fund all requests without dipping into the fund balance. At present time, and reported by the auditors from the completion of the fiscal year 21-22 budget audit, the county's general fund balance is estimated at 16.52%. This year's requests from departments were larger than in typical years, and unfortunately, we were left with no choice but to cut the vast majority of requests, leaving a bare bones budget with minimal recommended requests in order to maintain current operations and services. After cuts were made, we were left with $6.36 million in funding needed to balance the budget. With minimal increased revenues and a clear instruction to not increase taxes, the only choice that we were left with was to pull from the general fund balance, once again lowering the percentage below what we were advised to keep it at. Through the budget process, it was discovered that the county is at a pivotal point where important decisions about the future state of the county will need to be made in order to account for the increased spending and services being provided. We are at a crossroads where a choice will have to be made. Will we increase taxes to provide more revenue to meet the number of expenditures, reduce the number of services being provided and consider a reduction in force, or dip into the fund balance and reduce it lower than desired? The Board of Commissioners is tasked with deciding the priorities and direction of the organization, and we did not want to interfere with that by presenting a recommendation that altered the current expense and services offered in a major way. The fiscal year 23-24 budget is one of needs and not wants. The staff and I chose option 3 in order to present a balanced budget that maintained current operations. While dipping into the fund balance is not ideal, it was necessary at this point. Choosing this option of reducing the fund balance is only a temporary bandage for the larger problem at hand. Continuing to use general fund monies without putting more in is not possible. Per the budget process, the Board of Commissioners will have any and all authority to make changes as they see fit to the county manager's recommended budget. All recommendations presented in the fiscal year 23-24 budget were carefully reviewed, and while most of the requests from the departments were just and needed, recommendations were made based on priority and affordability. Budget requests from departments. At the beginning of 2023, the Board of Commissioners held a series of senior work sessions with administration and each department head. These sessions were used to better understand the needs of departments and the status of current operations within. Through the work sessions, department heads left with the understanding to include all needs and ideas for how to better their services in the upcoming year's budget, fiscal year 23-24. Because of this, the budget requests from department heads were extensive and less conservative than in previous years. While we originally thought a larger number of requests could be recommended, it turned out that they were not affordable this year. The senior work sessions and requests from department heads gave me and the budget staff an understanding of what was needed and how we could improve services. There was a long list of items that are needed and would have been recommended if the funding was available. If not recommended by the board and approved, many can be revisited after the budget at a future time. A large number of these considerations include additional positions, reclassifications, pay increases, and part-time rate adjustments. Many corrections that need to be made stemming from the salary study that was conducted in 2019-2020. Structural increases in the proposed budget across all departments were primarily for longevity increases, retirement contributions, and health/dental insurance premiums. Department requests also increased across the board due to inflation in the following areas: lease program rates for the county vehicles, gas/auto supplies, software and technology, equipment, etc. One line item that increased consistently for all departments this year was dues and subscriptions. IT advised that this year all departments would need to budget separately for email usage, in part due to the switch to Microsoft Office 365. The rates are dependent on how many email licenses each department has for their corresponding number of employees. Equipment requests. Requests were submitted for a variety of equipment, which included computers and other technologies. All computer requests were reviewed by the Information Systems Department, and only computers nearing the end of life were approved, unless they were funded by dollars other than the county. All equipment requests, along with my recommendations, are provided on an attached equipment sheet with more details and figures. The list of equipment items recommended for approval is shown below. Capitalized equipment, software for finance and HR/payroll, new HVAC control system for old portion of jail, HVAC replacement for probation building, brake lathe for vehicle maintenance, 4-post lift with electrical reconnect for vehicle maintenance, software for CAD, RMS, and JMS for emergency communications, sheriff, and jail, state link interface for emergency communications, upgrade to rapid SOS premium for emergency communications, bi-directional antenna for emergency communications, lease truck emergency package for fire marshal to outfit the lease truck, 1 ambulance for EMS, 1 laptop for EMS, 2 vehicles for DSS, 1 new UV light for the wastewater treatment plant, non-capitalized equipment, 1 computer for purchasing, camera system for superior clerk, 1 laser printer for superior clerk, pressure washer for maintenance and custodians, 1 desktop computer for sheriff's office, 1 laptop for detective in the sheriff's office, TV for training and investigations for the sheriff's office, 1 desktop computer for the jail, MISC equipment for emergency communications, blood warmer for EMS, 5 Savage 22 rifles with hard cases, locks, and ammo for animal control, 1 evidence locker for animal control, dart guns for 4 vehicles for animal control, floor mats and decals lettering for the 2 additional vehicles for staff for animal control, battery leaf blowers for green box sites, box blade for tractor for the solid waste, storage for tools at green box sites per OSHA, tools for maintenance shop for solid waste. Between equipment and improvement items recommended in the budget, 3 items are being recommended for financing, which will provide as the revenue source. 1 ambulance for EMS at $304,000, the new HVAC control system for the old portion of the jail at $215,000, and the regrading and repaving of the Autumn Square parking lot for an estimated cost of $250,000. The total for these 3 items to be financed is an estimated $769,000. The Public Works Director recommended regrading and then repaving the parking lot at Autumn Square due to concerns of the infrastructure being impacted from water issues when it rains. 2 of the largest recommended expenditures for equipment is the software for finance, HR/payroll, and the software for emergency communications in the sheriff's office. $500,000 of ARPA funds was appropriated last year for a finance and HR payroll software. This funding was rolled over and is still earmarked for funding this software. Requests for proposals have been sent out for companies to respond, and we're in the process of selecting a company if approved. Also recommended was a new software for the Sheriff's Department and emergency communications. They are currently working with the IT consultant and advisor on what is needed to provide adequate public safety services. A large portion of funding for this software will come from E911 funds, with the rest being funded by county dollars. Updates will be provided during the budget work session. Personnel requests. A numerous variety of personnel requests were received from county departments. Each is summarized below along with my recommendations. Many departments requested reclassifications and increases in the rates of part-time employees. The part-time rates of employees across all departments need to be looked at and reevaluated in a future budget. Wages of part-time employees need to be more consistent across the departments, but this year is not the time to establish new standards for increased rates. Again, many of the requested positions may be needed, but only the highest priority ones were recommended due to affordability. These decisions were made using my best judgment for what will best benefit the county at present time. Starting with the administration department. Administration requested the addition of a permanent part-time grants manager position. I recommend this position due to the amplified number of state and federal grants the county is receiving and the increased regulations around reporting of these grants. Also, due to the heavy workload of all department heads, many are prevented from having the time to look for and apply for grants. A grants manager position could explore potential grants for all departments to reap the benefits of all the free funding that's available. The idea is that this position would more than pay for itself in the funding that he or she brought in. Animal Control Department. The following requests were submitted by Animal Control and the Chief Animal Control Officer. The reclassification of one Animal Control Officer position to an Assistant Chief Animal Control Officer with an increase in pay. I do not recommend this change due to lack of affordability and the need. The reclassification of one animal shelter attendant to medical manager. I do not recommend approval due to lack of justification and affordability. The alteration of salaries for 2 animal shelter attendants to match each other. I do not recommend approval due to lack of justification. The alteration of salaries for 3 animal control officers to reflect equal pay for each. I do not recommend increasing or decreasing the salaries of employees so that they are making the same with no justification or cause. Cooperative Extension. Cooperative Extension requested a 6% increase for all 7 full-time employees due to inflation. I'm not recommending this increase because of the lack of affordability. We are unable to recommend this for other employees, and it needs to be fair across the board. District Resource Center. The District Resource Center requested to raise the hourly rate of part-time employees for that department. I do not recommend this increase due to the lack of affordability and the understanding that all part-time rates need to be looked at in the future. Board of Elections Department. The Board of Elections Director requested to raise the hourly rate of part-time employees for that department. I do not recommend this increase due to the lack of affordability and the understanding that all part-time rates need to be looked at in the future. Emergency Communications. The following requests were submitted by Emergency Communications. The addition of 4 new public safety telecommunicator positions. I do not recommend these additional positions due to lack of affordability and the reoccurring costs associated with new personnel. The addition of 1 new E911 systems manager position. I do not recommend this position due to lack of affordability and the reoccurring costs associated with new personnel. The county's recently hired IT consultant advisor has begun work to assist in information systems. Until it has been determined that this is an evident need that the IT consultant advisor cannot assist with, it is not a priority. A 5% increase for all full-time employees in emergency communications. I do not recommend this request increase due to a lack of affordability. I do recommend exploring this request further when funds are available to make telecommunicator salaries more comparable to those in surrounding counties. The increase of the hourly rate for part-time employees. I do recommend this request due to the need to fill vacant shifts without using overtime, which is very costly. Currently, out of the 20 total part-time positions available, only 10 are filled, leaving 10 vacant. The rate needs to be increased to recruit telecommunicators to cover shifts and to become equivalent to other public safety part-time rates in the county, because telecommunicators are a vital part of making public safety work. EMS and Emergency Management Departments. The following requests were submitted by EMS and Emergency Management. An increase in salary for the Emergency Services Director for credit of years of service. I do not recommend the increase in salary due to lack of affordability at present time. The addition of 2 to 3 part-time positions to the Emergency Management Department to assist with growing demands. I do not recommend these positions due to lack of affordability in the upcoming budget. The reclassification of the Operations Manager/Training Officer to Assistant Director and hiring a new Training Officer position. I do not recommend this due to lack of affordability and the recurring cost of adding new personnel. The addition of Office Manager/Administrative Aide to EMS. I do not recommend this position at this current point in time due to lack of affordability and costs associated with hiring new personnel. The addition of 3 new Assistant Supervisor positions. I do not recommend these positions due to lack of affordability and the associated cost increases to EMS overtime with 3 additional paramedic supervisors. The addition of 3 new paramedic positions. I do not recommend these positions due to lack of affordability and the associated cost increases to EMS overtime with 3 additional paramedic supervisors. The introduction of a retention plan that includes 6 current personnel becoming paramedic field training officers with compensation and an increase for 18 current employees that are rapid sequence intubation cleared. I do not recommend this due to lack of affordability and the recurring costs associated with new personnel and EMS overtime. Finance. The following requests were submitted by Finance. To increase the Assistant Finance Director salary by 2% for credit of years of service. I do not recommend this increase due to lack of affordability. Also to increase the Finance Accounting Tech / Accounts Payable position salary by 2% due to increase in duties. I do not recommend this increase at this time due to lack of affordability as well. Fire Marshal's Office. The following requests were submitted by the Fire Marshal's Office. The addition of 6 firefighters to provide fire support through the staffing of response trucks. I do not recommend the addition of 6 new firefighters due to lack of affordability and the costs associated with new personnel. However, I do think that a plan needs to be developed to best determine how to make up for the decreasing numbers of volunteer firefighters. Also requested was the addition of a part-time fire marshal employee to fill in on calls or work when the fire marshal or assistant fire marshals could not in order to provide extra support. I do not recommend this position due to a lack of affordability and the lack of justification provided. It was requested that the assistant fire marshal position be reclassified to a grade 39 from a grade 37. I do not recommend this reclassification due to a lack of affordability and the fact that I am only recommending priority requests at this time. The fire marshal requested a salary increase in the fire marshal position for credit of years of service and also increased duties from the evolution of the position. I do not recommend this change at this time due to lack of affordability. GIS mapping, reevaluation, and tax administration departments. The tax administrator requested the implementation of an incentive pay initiative for all departments under the tax office, including tax admin, revaluation, and GIS/mapping. The request involves cross-training of employees and an opportunity to climb the pay scale for going above and beyond the normal duties. I do not recommend the implementation of this program due to the lack of such opportunities for other employees to learn and receive additional funds. A merit pay system is also being considered by administration and the Board of Commissioners, so it would be advisable to wait until the program is developed so employees can earn incentives through that means. Health Department. The following requests were submitted by the Health Department. An increase in salary for the current Health Director due to qualifications, education, and duties performed. This request is not recommended at this time due to lack of affordability. The reclassification of the Administrative Officer 1 position to Assistant Health Director from a pay grade 33 to a 42. I'm not recommending the reclassification due to lack of affordability and the need to keep consistency among departments for fairness. Similar departments like DSS and EMS with a large number of staff do not have an assistant director. The need for the position among several departments can be considered in the future budget. The addition of a position for the medical director physician to become full-time provider at the health department. I am recommending the approval of this position for several reasons. The introduction of a full-time doctor to the health department would allow for the employee wellness clinic that Health, HR, and Cypress Benefit Solutions have been in discussions about for some time. Ideally, an employee wellness program would be developed where employees could utilize this provider on site at any point without a copay. This would be a savings and added benefit to all employees. The medical director physician would also be able to continue to provide prenatal services and act in the position as the health department's medical director as well. Currently, the medical director physician is acting in these roles 1 day a week through a contract with Atrium Health. An estimated $97,800 could be reduced from the contractual services that we are currently paying for and be put towards her salary, which will be needed to provide these services full-time as a staff member. The additional monies needed for her salary for the first year would be covered through the state funding that the health department is receiving. After that, the estimated revenues that the provider would bring in from seeing patients 5 days a week is estimated to be more than enough to cover the salaries and fringes in full. This is a great opportunity for Stokes County that will also benefit employees and potentially lower health insurance costs. Human Resources Department. The following requests were submitted by the HR Department. Addition of 1 full-time position for a Human Resources Analyst at a grade 36 to assist HR in their increased duties and day-to-day operations. I am not recommending this request due to the introduction and implementation of new HR management and timekeeping software in the near future. A request for proposals has been sent out and the process is well underway. It would be advisable to gauge how many duties the software helped to alleviate and how operations were more efficient after its implementation to see if additional personnel is still needed at that point. The reclassification of the Assistant Human Resource Director to a grade 43 from a 36 due to significance of duties and better alignment with similar types of positions on the pay scale. I do not recommend this reclassification at this time due to lack of affordability and the need to do an across-the-board evaluation of the current salary plan. Sheriff's Office and Jail. The following requests were submitted by the Sheriff's Office and Jail Departments. Addition of 4 new detention officers to help with staffing shortage problems and to prepare for the new state rules taking effect June of 2024 concerning training. I am not recommending the request at this time due to lack of affordability and the large costs associated with recurring personnel expenses. Addition of 1 new record specialist position to assist in increased amounts of record keeping, paperwork, and manual data entry. I do not recommend this addition due to the lack of affordability and the large costs associated with personnel. The addition of 4 new deputy sheriffs for patrol officers to allow for adequate staffing and coverage on the road. I am not recommending the request at this time due to lack of affordability and the large costs associated with recurring personnel expenses. Reclassification of all non-exempt positions to be moved up 1 pay grade, with the exception of the jail, to be adjusted to reflect the same scale as the patrol division. Also requested is a 4% COLA for all exempt employees, with the pay grade remaining the same. I do not recommend these requests at this time due to lack of affordability and the need for all employees to be considered if a COLA is implemented. Libraries. The director of the Northwestern Regional Library requested a 2.5% cost of living increase for all library staff in Stokes County. I do not recommend this request at this time due to lack of affordability and the fairness to all employees if an adjustment is to be given for salaries. Natural resources. Natural Resources, Soil and Water requested the reclassification of the district soil and water conservationist position from a grade 34 to a 36 due to the salary study not accurately encapsulating the true duties of the position. I do not recommend the reclassification of the position at this time due to lack of affordability. Planning Department. The following requests were submitted by the Planning Department. Reclassification of the permitting technician position to a planning/permit technician with a grade increase to level 30. This request was made due to additional job duties and taking on needed roles and focusing more on the planning side of the department. I am not recommending this reclassification due to lack of affordability. An increase in salary for the office manager/permit technician position due to work performance. I am not recommending this increase due to lack of affordability and lack of justification. Public Buildings Department. The Public Works Director requested a reclassification of 2 positions due to the misalignment of pay title and duties on the pay scale. He requested that the custodian position be moved from a grade 24 to a grade 26, where the senior custodian position currently exists. It was also requested that once moved, all custodians would fall under the custodian position title and extinguish the senior custodian title. Previously, the custodians operating under the senior custodian title worked at the Forsyth Tech Stokes campus as custodians and as security guards. Permanent security guards are now hired for the campus, so all custodians are now completing the same duties, just under different titles. I am recommending this change be made in order for all employees that are completing the same duties to be compensated the same and carry the same title while on the same pay grade on the scale. Currently, no additional county funds will be needed to be paid if this adjustment is made, as all custodians are above the minimum of the grade 26. Register of Deeds Department. The following requests were submitted by the Register of Deeds. Reclassification for the Assistant Register of Deeds from a 32 to a 35 at midpoint due to the increase in duties, merit, and new training. I do not recommend this reclassification at this time due to lack of affordability. Reclassification of both Deputy Register of Deeds positions due to merit and increase in duties. I do not recommend this change at this time due to lack of affordability. Senior Services Department. The following requests were submitted by Senior Services. The reclassification of the Senior Program Director from a grade 36 to a grade 34. I am recommending this reclassification and change of title from Senior Program Director to Senior Services Director. This position is grades lower than all other department heads when the duties are equivalent, if not more than some, that are above this position. This department head supervises a greater number of employees than some department heads already existing on a grade 42. This change needs to be made in order to fairly compensate the position for the duties performed, number of employees supervised, and the weight of the position. Also, for future hiring purposes with this position, corrections need to be made to attract the candidates necessary to perform the duties required of the director, especially with an aging population. An increase in salary for the office assistant at Senior Services. I do not recommend this increase due to a lack of justification and affordability. The addition of 2 new temporary part-time positions, a senior resource aide and an office assistant. I am not recommending the senior resource aide position for the Senior Services Office due to lack of affordability. However, I am recommending the part-time position of office assistant for the Walnut Cove Senior Center. This position will help the Walnut Cove Senior Center coordinator organize programs and activities for the seniors in order to maintain the center's certification of excellence credentials. A certain number of programs must be offered and organized in order for the center to maintain the certification. With the growing population of older adults and the demand for programs in Stokes, an additional part-time person is needed so that the certification can be maintained and the service can continue to be provided to benefit all seniors. Department of Social Services. The following requests were submitted by DSS. The addition of 2 income maintenance caseworker 2 positions. I recommend approval of these positions due to the evident need of adding more staff to handle the upcoming expansion of Medicaid from the state. The expansion of Medicaid will largely increase the demands of the Medicaid department on top of the already high caseload numbers current employees have, because it will allow for approximately 3,000 additional citizens in Stokes County to be eligible for benefits. However, the state does provide for 75% of the funding for each of these positions. The addition of a new Administrative Assistant 1 position that will help in accomplishing day-to-day organizational work. I do not recommend this position at this time due to lack of affordability. The reclassification of a Social Worker 2 position to a Social Worker 3 IAT position. I do not recommend this change due to lack of justification and affordability. Veteran Services Department. Veteran Services requested the addition of a part-time Assistant Veteran Service Officer position. I recommend this request for the necessary purpose of the transitional planning so that Veteran Services Department can continue to provide services to veterans if the current employee leaves. There is only one employee in this department, the Veteran Service Officer, who works only 4 days a week. The addition of the part-time employee would allow the current VSO the ability to train someone and pass along the knowledge and skills needed to help veterans acquire and manage benefits. Once trained, this part-time employee would fill in on days that the Veteran Service Officer could not work and would provide supplemental help to the increasing numbers of clients that are coming to utilize these services. Summary of personnel requests and recommendations. Below is a summary of my recommended personnel changes for fiscal year 23-24. Grants Manager part-time position, $39,000. Funding from county dollars. Depending on the number of grants that Stokes is awarded through this position, the revenue should be more than enough to offset the cost. Reclassification of Chief Animal Control Officer, $2,170 without fringes. A reclassification of the Chief Animal Control Officer is proposed and required due to this position becoming exempt July 1, 2023. Due to the approval of several new positions in animal control, which increase the number of employees needing supervision, along with a substantial amount of comp time being accrued, the Chief Animal Control Officer position must be changed from non-exempt to exempt status. In order to make this change, compensation must be given since on-call pay and accrual of comp time is no longer possible. It is requested that the Chief Animal Control Officer position be moved from a grade 36 on the scale to a grade 42 with a 4% added to current salary since the employee salary is larger than the minimum of that pay grade. This would come from county funding. Part-time rate increase for telecommunicators recommended at $18.50 per hour from county funding. Veteran Service Officer part-time position approximating $17,475 from county funding. Senior Program Director reclassification, $5,892 from county funding. Senior Services part-time position for Senior Center, $13,832 from county funding. Full-time Medical Director position for Health Department, $175,000. State funding for next fiscal year with projected revenues to cover the salary in full. 2 Income Maintenance Caseworker positions for DSS, $66,476. 75% funding covered by the state, 25% funding by the county. Employee Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA. I am not recommending a cost of living adjustment or bonus this year for county employees due to the difficult budget challenges the county faces. While I do think that this will be an appropriate year to recommend a COLA due to inflation and the fact that an adjustment was not given last year, until more funds are available, I cannot in good conscience recommend one. If the funds are made available, Human Resources requested that administration consider at least a 2% COLA this year. Though the county is experiencing the ongoing process of updating equipment and software to make sure that employees have the resources they need, our employees deserve competitive pay to other similar-sized local governments. Longevities and merit pay. Previously, longevities were calculated off of the minimum starting salary for each employee's pay grade at 2% on the employee's anniversary date. Several months ago, the Board of Commissioners approved to allow the 2% longevity to be calculated off of the employee's current salary. This decision was made based off of a request from Finance in order to make the new way of conducting the budget process through Jim's software work. While this is not a COLA by any means, this is a change that will benefit employees if longevities continue over the course of several years. In previous Board of Commissioner meetings, merit pay has also been discussed as a topic of interest alongside performance evaluations. The performance evaluation system and forms were approved, but the missing link to make it all come together is the merit pay that will be associated with lower high employee performance levels from evaluations. Throughout the budget work sessions or at a special meeting, the board will need to discuss and decide on a merit system of pay and whether that includes longevity pay. Excess comp time payout. I formally request that the Board of Commissioners consider and approve moving the excess comp time payout number from 75 hours back to 240. Originally, this was approved last July in order to assist the Sheriff's Office and jail with fairly compensating employees working over to cover the large amount of vacancies. While changing this figure has helped in a small way, it did not provide the expected results, which resulted in a cost to the county of approximately $56,000. Board of Education request. As stated throughout the budget message, this budget year is especially challenging, which also impacts what can be done for the school system. Per budget guidance from the commissioners, the recommended budget for the Board of Education was to maintain what the county had given in last year's budget. Most of the requests seem to be reasonable, but the recommended budget follows the guidance of the commissioners and utilizes what is estimated from the various taxes: property motor vehicle tax for current expense and sales tax for capital outlay, plus a portion of their fund balance to maintain funding of schools. The Board of Education, along with the Board of Commissioners, are working to continue to find solutions to combat the decreasing number of students and the aging infrastructure of the school facilities. The Board of Education is actively exploring options, including analyzing the data and information from a variety of studies that were done to better guide the upcoming difficult decisions. Both current expense and capital outlay budgets for the schools continue to be significant, but as plan is implemented and carried out to make our schools more efficient, it would be expected that these budgets would decrease over time. Until a plan has been approved and is in progress, large capital expenses on all schools should be limited so that funds are directed towards facilities that will be utilized for years to come. A detailed debt service sheet for schools will be provided at a future budget work session. Current expense. Though the ADM level continues to decrease, the current expense budget request from the BOE continued to remain high. The budget request for current expense for fiscal year 23-24 was $17,865,936, which is an 11.85% increase over last year's approved budget. My recommendation is to provide the BOE $15,888,048 for current expense in an attempt to maintain the amount of funding that was provided last year. This includes $90,505 to the Board of Education for current expense to pay for operations and maintenance expenses for the Poplar Springs Elementary School, which will come from the new school/Versailles construction/renovation fund, also known as the 4-cent fund. The recommended $15,888,048 for school current expense also includes a $500,000 appropriation from their current expense fund balance in order to provide additional revenue that can cover a larger portion of the remaining request over what the main revenues could provide. Per the audit, it was reported that their current expense fund balance as of June 2022 was $539,066. Last year's budget appropriated $175,000 of their current expense fund balance toward their current expense budget. The Board of Commissioners also unanimously made the decision to appropriate $843,905 out of the county's ARPA funds to aid in funding the current expense budget. Capital outlay expense. The Board of Education capital outlay request for this budget was $11,837,560. My recommendation is to provide the Board of Education $2,750,000, which includes using $200,000 from their fund balance for capital outlay. As of June 2022, approximately $728,848 was reported to be in their fund balance from the audit. Based on the Board of Education's capital outlay request, $2,089,600 will take care of immediate priorities, and $9,774,960 would provide for other capital needs to be met. This totals the $11,837,560 request. My recommendation of $2,750,000 will take care of immediate priorities along with some of the other needs that the Board of Education displayed. For clarification, the funding I have recommended in this budget recommendation for capital outlay expense is required by general statute to go to the school system for capital expenditures or debt service and cannot be used for other purposes. As a general note, the estimated cost for renovation of school facilities, both limited and full, per the facility study completed by Gordon and Peterson Architects, was as follows: $54,424,530 for limited renovations of facilities and $90,707,550 for full renovations. The Board of Education has also made the county aware that they intend to pursue the North Carolina Needs-Based Public School Capital Fund in September of 2023 to assist with district consolidation efforts. If they are awarded this, a 5% match is required, for which the Board of Education would make a separate request to acquire this funding. Based on the maximum grant awards with an anticipated 5% match, the amounts could be as follows: up to $30 million for an elementary school with a match of $1.5 million, up to $40 million for a middle school or elementary middle combo with a match of $2 million, up to $50 million for a high school with a match of $2.5 million. Status of revenues. Ad valorem taxes. Ad valorem taxes are the main source of revenue for the county budget. The total estimated growth for value and real value, personal, motor vehicle, and public utility taxes is $75,785,352 for the upcoming year. Based on figures reported from the Stokes County audit, the fiscal year 2021-2022 actual collection rate was 98.13%. This proposed budget uses the maximum collection rate of 98.13%. Approximately 50% of the ad valorem tax revenue goes to fund the school's current expense budget. Sales tax. Sales tax receipts for the general fund are up by 10.85% over last year as of March 31st, 2023. The tax receipts for Article 40 and 42 for the school system are up as well at 9.96% over last year. Even though sales tax receipts continue to increase, the county must be cautious due to the inflation and the potential for visitors and citizens to slow down on spending. Interest earnings / rates. Interest rates have been steadily climbing over the past year. The county has accumulated several $100,000 in interest earnings for several different pots of monies that the finance director has managed in interest-bearing accounts. The total amongst different accounts holding the general fund and other grants totals to be $540,849 in interest. Fee increases. Both planning and inspections and emergency medical services have raised their fees as of recently. These increases in fee schedules will place Stokes more in line with surrounding counties. The EMS fee increases will allow the department to receive the complete funding possible from insurance companies when bills are submitted for coverage that we are missing out on. Both of these fee schedule increases will provide additional revenue to the county that can help cover a portion of these departments' expenditures. Occupancy tax. Currently, Stokes County is in the process of trying to acquire an occupancy tax that lodging accommodations and overnight vacation rentals would charge visitors staying overnight in Stokes as part of their visit. A resolution was sent to Raleigh requesting that the General Assembly consider passing a local act authorizing Stokes County to collect the occupancy tax. Legislators in the General Assembly introduced a local act that has passed committees in both the House and the Senate. If the state authorizes the county to collect this occupancy tax, again, this is a tax on visitors and tourists, the board will hold a public hearing on the issue and then present a resolution for approval that will levy the occupancy tax. There will be a grace period once the Board of Commissioners passes the resolution to allow for education and training of lodging and accommodation hosts for how to collect and report on the taxes. It was requested the state pass the maximum rate allowed of 6%. The tax department has estimated that the implementation of this occupancy tax will bring in approximately $100,000 in additional revenue. As the number of overnight accommodations increases along with the number of visitors, the amount of revenue the county can bring in from this will increase as well. No revenue is projected in this year's recommended budget as it has not been approved or implemented. Quarter-cent sales tax. The county is also considering putting the 1/4-cent sales tax back on the ballot for an upcoming election. This change would increase the current sales tax rate from 6.75% to 7%, a rate that many counties have already approved and are utilizing additional funds from. The increased 1/4 cent could generate as much as $800,000 to $1.2 million in additional revenue depending on the number of visitors and sales. The passage and implementation of this tax would be an additional revenue for the county that visitors would contribute to as well, and an added encouragement of locals and visitors to shop local. No revenues are projected in this year's recommended budget. Health and dental and other insurance costs. The county will continue a health reimbursement account, HRA/split deductible this year to cover county employees, along with continuing to pay 100% of the premium cost for all employees. Stokes will continue to utilize Cypress Benefit Solutions for insurance and benefits to provide coverage through MedCost for health, MetLife for dental, and Community Eye for vision. Unfortunately, there was a 5% increase in health insurance and a 2% increase in dental insurance this year due to inflation and an increased number of claims. Vision did not experience any increase this year. Recently, the county made the switch for life insurance provider from Prudential to MetLife and also made the switch for supplemental insurance from Aflac to MetLife. The shift in providers was made for the betterment of employees due to MetLife maintaining more affordable rates and better customer service. The county will continue supporting the $25,000 of life insurance through MetLife for each active full-time employee covered by the county and at no individual cost to the employee. The Health Department, Human Resources, and Cypress Benefit Solutions are continuing to work on providing an employee wellness program. The recommended approval of a medical director physician full-time on staff would be a great start to this initiative. A wellness program will help to reduce insurance premiums, prevent health problems for employees, which may reduce employee absences, and reduce medical costs overall. The county also saw an increase this year in general, property liability, and auto insurance that we currently have with NCACC. Insurance rates increased 30% due to inflation and higher associated costs overall at an estimated figure of $89,000. The board approved the renewal of insurance with this increase, but other private providers that were available if the county had not went through the NCACC increased as well. The majority of counties in North Carolina utilize the NCACC for insurance in these areas, including workers' comp, which experienced no increase this year. Enterprise funds. The county has 3 enterprise funds: Stokes Reynolds Memorial Hospital Fund, Regional Sewer Fund, and Danbury Water Fund. Stokes Reynolds Memorial Hospital Fund This fund is used in conjunction with the hospital operator Lifebright in accordance with the terms and conditions of the county's amended lease. This account holds the $10,000 annual payment from Lifebright to the county for future capital improvements per the lease. As of now, there is $62,000 in this account. A budget request from the Public Works Director was made to replace the HVAC system of the pediatric building at the hospital due to its nearing end of life. Because of the lack of affordability and uncertainty of the direction of the hospital, we recommend waiting another year for this. The funding is available if the urgent need arises during this fiscal year, though. Regional Sewer Fund. The Regional Sewer Fund remains financially sound with no proposed rate increases. My budget recommendation includes a new UV light for wastewater treatment plant. There are 3 UV lights total at the plant to kill bacteria in the water. If one of these goes out and there's not a backup on hand, then chlorine must be used to kill bacteria, which is very expensive and not the preferred means. The recommendation also includes improvements to the sewer system to rework the manholes at 3 different locations. Danbury Water Fund. The Danbury Water Fund remains fiscally sound. Legal services. This proposed budget has no increase in retainer fee for the county attorney. Currently, the county contract with 2 attorneys, one of which is dedicated to providing specific legal services to the Department of Social Services, plus the county attorney who provides both general legal services to the county and separate specific legal services to DSS. The total legal budget for the county attorney is $94,000. Additional funding in the amount of $200,000 is also included in the DSS budget for the DSS attorney. Only a portion of this funding for the DSS attorney is county funds, as some comes from the state. EMS and Emergency Operations Center move. The Emergency Operations Center, EOC, and Emergency Medical Services, EMS Department will be moving to the county-owned Autumn Square facility in the upcoming months. This move will allow more space for emergency management to operate and will act as a hub for public safety, with both EMS and the fire marshal being located there. Some small renovation work has already begun with the grant that the Emergency Services Director received. The Emergency Services Director and team applied for another capacity building competitive grant for which Stokes County is eligible to receive up to $500,000. This grant, if received, would provide for Emergency Operations Center upgrades for Autumn Square, as well as upgrades to the Emergency Management Building. The approval status of Stokes County receiving the grant will be known on June 1, 2023. It is noted that the several budgetary items requested by EMS, Emergency Management, and Public Buildings were taken out with hopes of being funded through this grant. If the grant is not received, then the requested items will need to be reconsidered during the budget process. Economic Development. Currently, an interim organizational structure is in place where the Director of Arts and Cultural Services is serving as Acting Economic Development Director with the assistance of Tourism/Marketing Analyst. The recommended budget includes this salary for a full-time director, which is currently vacant, and the currently serving Tourism/Marketing Analyst due to the questionable future of the department. In the next several months, a plan will be proposed for how best to proceed with the structure and operation of the Economic Development Department. At this time, the salary line items and budget can be shifted to fit whichever model is presented that the board adopts. Grant Program for County Parks. This budget recommendation continues to fund operational costs of $4,000 per year to assist the parks that are approved to receive these funds, including Pinnacle Lions Park, Germantown Park, Walnut Cove Lions Park, and East Walnut Cove Community Park. Moortalk Park is county managed and operated, and that budget falls under the parks budget managed by the Public Works Director. While it is acknowledged that most, if not all, of the county-owned parks need improvements, the $4,000 is what the county annually continues to provide without a parks department. It would be advisable for administration and the governing body to consider creating a Parks and Recreation Department once funds are available to do so. In the meantime, and if the recommended grants manager position gets approved, enhancing all county parks should be one of the top priorities for grant searching and application. Hopefully, through the awarding of grant monies, we can start making large upgrades to all parks and improve the quality of life for citizens. Fire departments and fire tax. My budget recommendation does not include a fire tax increase for any of the fire departments or service areas, including the Service District, King Fire Department, Walnut Cove Fire and Rescue, and Roll Hall Fire and Rescue. The Service District and Roll Hall Fire and Rescue did not request a tax increase, but both the City of King Fire Department and Walnut Cove Fire and Rescue did. King requested a half a cent fire tax increase and Walnut Cove a 1 cent fire tax increase, both citing a large increase in call volume paired with a decrease of volunteers in the fire service. Both departments requested this increase in order to afford paid personnel to handle the volume of calls. I'm not recommending a fire tax increase for fiscal year 23-24 due to budget guidance from the Board of Commissioners. I strictly advise against not increasing any kind of taxes in this upcoming year. For the Service District, the Fire Commission voted the payoff of six apparatus and 2 structures in the upcoming budget year for a total debt payoff of $938,548 from revenue fund balance. If approved, this will reduce the total service district debt from $3,612,283 to $2,673,735. Status of special funding and grant projects. Over the course of the last 2 years, Stokes County has been provided with several different avenues of additional funding. Projects utilizing these funds are ongoing, and the monies are being used for the specified purposes for the betterment of the county. As grants and special funding sources are a nice supplement to traditional revenues, the county is actively pursuing additional ways to secure more funding through grants and other means. American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA. In 2021, Stokes County was allocated approximately $8.9 million in state and local coronavirus fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act. This aid was provided directly from the federal government to state and local governments across the nation in hopes of offsetting the negative effects of COVID-19 pandemic. The Board of Commissioners approved to set aside and utilize $2.4 million for broadband infrastructure and use the remaining for a variety of other equipment and project needs in the last year's budget. Many large one-time expense items were bought with ARPA funding instead of using county funds or financing. Because of this, the majority of the funding was and has been utilized in the fiscal year 22-23 budget. The remaining ARPA funds to be spent are below. $2.4 million broadband infrastructure, $1.29 million construction of a new animal shelter, $450,000 county matching funds for rural transformation grant for the arts that the Arts Council received, $246,357 upfit and renovation of the new elections building, which is the old bank, $500,000 new software for finance and human resources / payroll, $200,000 demo of the old prison camp. Broadband expansion. $2.4 million was approved by the Board of Commissioners under the ARPA funding category of broadband infrastructure, meaning that this portion of funding can only be spent on broadband. Once this was decided, the county put out a request for proposals and selected River Street Networks as the provider to award the contract to for use of the $2.4 million. After the selection, River Street Networks applied for a great grant through the state on behalf of Stokes County for broadband expansion to unserved areas. River Street was awarded the maximum amount possible through the grant, which required a match from the county. The maximum amount of funding that Stokes is now allowed to provide to River Street, following the strict guidelines of the Great Grant legislation, is now approximately $1.3 million. River Street is well underway with projects to expand broadband already and will continue with this new project. The board has unanimously agreed to hold the additional $1.1 million broadband infrastructure funds specifically to use in the Stokes County for furthering broadband expansion through several more grants coming down the line. New animal shelter. $1.3 million in funding was approved by the Board of Commissioners for the construction of a new county animal shelter. Approximately $10,000 of this funding has been utilized for paying Freeman Connect architects, who are currently constructing a plan and the design of the new animal shelter. The rest of the funding will go to the actual construction and build of the shelter. Rural Transformation Grant. $850,000 was awarded to the County Stokes and the Arts Council for a rural transformation grant to be utilized in renovation of the remainder of the arts block on Main Street in Danbury. This grant requires a $450,000 match from the county, for which ARPA funds were used. The renovation includes the upfitting of a restaurant space at 506 Main Street, renovation of the bakery at 508 Main Street, and preparation for a new business in the basement of those two units, which will be utilized as a brewery / tap room. Finance and HR / payroll software. $500,000 was appropriated from ARPA funds for the purchase and implementation of a new finance software that would also cover employee management through HR, timekeeping, and payroll. A request for proposals has been sent out for both finance and HR payroll component, and accompanying software should be selected soon for the process of transitioning software to begin. Courthouse renovation. For the courthouse expansion and renovation project, $2 million was appropriated via a state capital infrastructure grant for Stokes County. Gordon and Peterson Architects are working on the schematics and design of the renovation project and hope to begin work in the near future. It was recently presented at a Board of Commissioners meeting that the actual estimated project cost is $8.5 million. An additional $750,000 was presented as the additional cost for a new boiler, control system, and generation, since the current ones were original to when the courthouse was first constructed. This project will be funded with $2 million in SCIF grant funds, with the rest of the project being funded through proceeds from financing. Hospital grant funds. Like some of the other county-owned buildings, the Stokes Reynolds Memorial Hospital building that is currently operated by LifeBright is aging and in need of major repairs. There is an ongoing process to develop a plan for what to do with the hospital and what kind of medical facility is feasible for this area of the county in Danbury. $10 million was granted to Stokes County through a SCIF grant for the siting and construction of a hospital in Danbury. The county still currently has the entirety of the funding on hand and an interest-bearing account that has generated approximately $104,000 in interest. Health Facilities Group, HFG, was the selected company to use a small portion of the funding for the development of a feasibility study. The county is taking steps to use the funding, with the first step being the feasibility study to determine which is the smartest direction to go for Stokes County. Opioid settlement funds. Through the litigation between local governments and several large pharmaceutical companies, Stokes County was awarded $4,019,041 in opioid settlement monies. The funding for the settlement is dispersed over the course of 18 years, with us currently being in the second year. To date, we have received $494,584 of this funding, with an estimated next payment of sometime this summer. All counties in North Carolina signed what was called the NCMOA to allow the state to manage and regulate how the funds could be spent. Through the MOA, there were 2 different plans localities could choose from, containing a variety of options. Stokes County chose option B with a long list of strategies that were targeted at reducing the opioid epidemic. The Board of Commissioners recently appointed a Substance Use and Treatment Committee to review the strategies and make recommendations to the Board for how best to spend the funds for Stokes County. Summary and recommendations. In summary, my recommended budget attempts to maintain the current level of services while outlining the needs of the county that need to be addressed in an attempt to move the county forward. Over the course of the next several years, a plan will need to be developed and implemented for steps that can be taken to reduce expenditures or increase revenues for the successful operation of this county government. This budget does not increase any tax rate, but does, however, appropriate a substantial amount of the county's general fund dollars to balance the budget. The budget continues to pay 100% of employees' health, dental, and vision care premiums and keeps the HRA structure in place, but does not provide for a COLA or bonus for full-time employees. Past and present boards of commissioners continue to provide a very high level of government services to citizens with limited tax increases. While there is still a lot of work to be done, there are a lot of accomplishments that the governing body and county staff members have made and continue to make for the county to move forward. As we go through the budget process and work on approving an operating budget for fiscal year 2023-2024, there are a wide array of options to consider for how to best address the problems we face. These are problems that we need to deal with now in order to limit the county's risk and liability. The main issue at hand is generating sufficient revenues to keep services at an acceptable level without reducing the county's general fund balance to a substandard percentage. It is my formal recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners adopt my recommended budget of $54,936,166 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. I would like to thank Finance Director Lisa Langford and Assistant Finance Director Tracy Aaron for the countless hours they spent helping put this budget together. I would also like to thank Tori May for assisting with the formatting and the graphics, and Darlene Bullens for providing administrative support and guidance. Lastly, I would like to thank all the Stokes County employees for continuing to provide the best services to citizens, regardless of the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the public comments, I think. And I think we have 2 folks signed up for that. First one is Glenn Knox.
Thank you. This will be short and brief. On March 25th, I suffered a cardiac event that could have been the point where I wouldn't be standing here today. I have several people to thank for standing here today. Stokes County EMS, they were absolutely on the ball. Scott Aaron, he was there as well. Wayne Barneycastle, and also John Bond Catering, who happened to have 3 EMS people who worked the catering business and came out and used the 2 AEDs that my wife carries with her. Yes, my wife carries 2 AEDs. And used one of those and brought me back. I just wanted to thank everybody publicly for that. I also wanted to make one comment. We do have an AED here in this building. The sign on the front door says we have an AED, but it doesn't say where in the building it is. Seconds count. If you can add a sticker someplace there that says where that AED is, that'll help somebody in the future. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, our next speaker and last speaker is Chad Jarvis, Health Board Chair.
So I appreciate the few minutes. I did not feel like this needed to be on the agenda item, but I did need to make sure the commissioners were aware publicly of a few things. So I come here both as a citizen and as the chairman of the Board of Health, and I want to take the opportunity to invite the commissioners to take some time in the near future to tour the renovated clinic areas of the health department. is a far more inviting space for both the patient and the provider. Those are completed and it looks a lot better. So if you have a moment, please get with Tammy and stray by there if you can. I also wanted to make, in a public format, an awareness of the working Board of Health that's been put together, working with the commissioners and the citizens to recruit a working Board of Health here in Stokes County. We now have board committees for operations and policy. The focus is to ensure the department and services are operated and provided with measurable efficiency. Planning and Development Committee, with a focus on the total mission of the department, what programs should be offered, all in an attempt to ensure the agileness of that department and to meet the changing needs of the citizens of Stokes County, as our county is ever rapidly changing. I also need to make sure the commissioners are aware, doesn't require response or questions, obviously during a public comment, of the very tight timeline regarding departmental contracts and budgets as it relates to the medical director, which I think I've, in other communications, made that clear. But in a public format, I wanted to make sure that the citizens are aware the acquisition of a full-time medical director, full-time healthcare provider in the clinic, and a full-time ability to provide a public health, or not a public, but a employee health clinic comes about at no additional expenditure from the county. It's done through some creative acquisitions of monies, looking at what resources are there, and then even though some of those may not be reoccurring, the generation of revenue. It's like bringing the stray kitten in. Once you get it in, it will catch rats and show its value and make itself valuable to the county. I hate that's my analogy, but I grew up down east. It's what you get. So with that being said, I also we will work with the county manager to ensure that other things that we have requested in our departmental budget will find ways at no additional expense. We'll find every stone we can unturn. We'll find ways to bring those requests to light because they are definitely needed. Obviously, every department has needs, but if we can find our own way, we'll do it. With that being said, I also will work with the county manager because I do believe at some point in the very near future, we need to have a joint meeting to discuss contracts. It would be probably a closed session. That's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, ladies, please feel free to reach out to me. I come loaded with bear. I bring staff. So if you ever do have any questions during this budget process, they'll be available here for you to ask. Thank you all.
Hey, thanks, Chad. All right, the next item on our agenda are comments from the manager and commissioners, and I'll start with Commissioner Cox today.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Amber, for a lengthy budget message. I think you covered a lot of territory, though, and kind of explained it well, so we have our work cut out for us, for sure, and I'd like to thank Mr. Knox for his comments, and also thanking all those who helped to save him, and I think more AEDs if we could get them, probably not in the budget, but wouldn't hurt to have one on each floor and all that good stuff, and make sure all the buildings are equipped with those as well, and like he said, where they are located. We had October Road open house in Walnut Cove, substance use treatment facility there with MAT and other services. That went great, and they are there and available to help, open for business, to give access to care to our community, to help remove some of the barriers to treatment, and I encourage all of our community to utilize them as needed. I also want to take just a second to recognize some athletes from our county who won state championships this weekend. South Stokes had a Barry Harrison Jr. won state high jump. He's a state champion. Carly Butts from West Stokes in discus is a state champion. Jaylee Brown won the 100 meter and set a new state record, and won the 400 meter and placed second in the 200 meter and I think she's only a sophomore. So West Baseball made it to the 4th round, and I think South Stokes is playing for the Regional West Final this week, but I don't know the date. Do you know? When's it? Tuesday? Okay. So congratulations to all those teams and athletes, well represented. I think that's all I've got.
All right, Commissioner Wood.
I'd like to thank everybody that's watching on YouTube. I think everybody else is hereby having to be. So a couple of things that I attended that I really like to mention. I went to early college graduation, and I was really impressed. I was impressed with the kids, the speakers, the teachers. I was just blown away. The other event I also went to the October Road ribbon cutting, and that was a great turnout. I'm excited about that, but also I want to thank James Boo for inviting me to the Soil and Water banquet. That was very impressive too, and a great location to hold that. And that's all I got.
All right, Commissioner Chan. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. I won't double track what Keith and Sonia said. A lot of us were at the same events, and it's the better side of Stokes County. And just with the soil and water thing, though, at campaigns, that is a real natural resource and beauty that Stokes County can be very, very proud of. That is a top-notch facility. Speaks well for Stokes County. I also like to thank interim county manager Amber. I think her and her team. I really appreciate kind of stepping up and getting the information out on our Stokes County Facebook page, recognizing the different proclamations, whether it be for law enforcement, for the nurses in the health department recently. I think that means a lot that to the staff. It shows that we are aware. We do appreciate all of our employees and all of our different components of government that it takes to make Stokes County to be efficient and safe. In terms of, I guess, the budget, I mean, it's kind of depressing hearing all the negative stuff coming out, and we do have our work cut out for us, but we need to stay positive. I think that we can't fix everything in a year. We got a lot of challenges, but I think that if we work together and if we communicate with each other, I think that we can, over the next couple of years, I think things will turn out right. That's all I have.
Hey, Commissioner Mendenhall.
Sure. I want to thank everybody for being here today. It's always a pleasure to see the people in the audience. Anyone that's watching on YouTube live stream, say thank you for being a part of this today. Also, to all the events that's been occurring in the last week. You get to make one of them that I wanted to make. However, I had a doctor's appointment, so but a lot of good things are going on in Stokes County, and I see progress being made in particular areas that is very pleasing. I think for everybody should be grateful for some of the new ideas that are being brought up into different communities and towns. I happen to participate, well, I'm on the board of trustees at Forsyth Tech. I was at the Forsyth Tech graduation at the Joy Coliseum on the with the trustees. We each got to shake about 100 of the students' hands as they crossed. They had right at 1,600 graduates, and I think they had 800 and some that walked. And the thing that makes it good for me is I saw a lot of Stokes County students walking across and got to shake their hands. In fact, one of the young men actually wrestled at South Stokes, and I called some of his matches, and he graduated from Forsyth Tech, and got to see many people that are new out there. And Amber, thank you for your presentation. But you did a good job with that. And I know I didn't say, I know we've got several budget meetings coming up, but I like a baseline to start out with as I read through this notebook here you fixed up for us. I believe it's a little thicker than one I had last year, so, but that's okay. I've read 500-page books in a night before when I was cramming in college, so hey, I think I can get that done. And it is good to see you, and would you pass along to James and them? I'm sorry I didn't get to make that, but I was thinking about it, okay? And the only other thing I have, that I do need to have the budget guidance on the agenda, but Lisa, can you give me the fund balance that we have currently? Because I need to work off of that.
Okay.
Where we at?
Well, the auditors were out this week. I really wanted to get their expertise opinion of what they think it is at the point, because we're finishing up 21-22 audit. So I can get it for you. They'll be back this week. I would like to talk to them first though.
So I can have that by,
Tomorrow.
okay.
I'll call them tonight
Hey,
or this afternoon.
I can certainly
Tomorrow.
wait 24 hours. That's
Okay.
not a big deal, man.
Okay.
But if you can get it to me tomorrow, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Amber, you want to talk some more?
I'm about talked out, but just welcome everybody to the meeting. Thank you for being here.
I'd also like to welcome everybody that's participating in the meeting today. One thing Amber asked me to mention, and I had the same thoughts myself from our last meeting, but we've got a little bit better mic setup up here now than we've been using in the past. But it's really important that anybody that speaks, that if you're in the audience and we recognize you, or if you're speaking public comments or whatever, that you stay close to that mic, because we want to make sure the public that are not here, that are on the social media side, can hear everything that's said. So between Amber and I, if somebody's slipping on that, we'll remind you to do it in the future. But that's just an administrative point. I'd like to thank Amber for a fairly sobering and very well thought out and thorough budget message. I think that'll really help us a lot as we kick off our discussions in the upcoming budget meetings. And certainly welcome the participation of the public in our budget process and our budget meetings. And I'd mentioned this at the men's club Saturday morning, but we'd really appreciate it if those that are interested would read this budget message and take a look at this budget and come to our public hearing on the 5th of June at 7 o'clock and give us your feedback on what you think to help us as we work through the process of approving a final budget. So with that, I think the next item is conflicts of interest statement. Before moving further, does any board member have a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda for today, or any that could be perceived as a conflict? Oh, okay.
I don't. But also, I want to thank Tracy and Lisa and all the finance department. I forgot to list y'all out, but
Yeah.
it was a team effort. And thanks for all y'all's hard work and many hours put in
Y'all
this
can go
budget.
home early tonight.
Yeah,
Sorry, I forgot that.
you've given it to us now, so you can take a break. But that's a really good point. It takes a complete team across the county to make that budget come together. And so it really is a lot of work. So we appreciate all those who participated. The next item is consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, passes unanimously. And then that'll move us to our discussion agenda. The first item on there is the tax office agenda with Richard Brim presenting.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Richard.
Hey, I don't think I have as much to talk about as Amber did. Cut me off, yeah, please do. Yeah, I'll be brief. Just like always, our tax collection status report. Pleased to report that we're 99.97% collected through the month of April, with 2 months left. So that's good. Next item, we have real and personal releases less than 100. We have 4 accounts that total $151.17. Refunds less than 100, we have 2 accounts for $16.67. Then we have releases more than 100, we have 1 account that's $420.15. And in the final category, refunds more than 100, 4 accounts that total $919.73. And then the final item I have, we have 4 present use value late applications. I do request that the board move the following items to the June 12th consent agenda: real and personal releases more than 100, and real and personal refunds more than 100, and the present use value late applications. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks, Richard. Good report. Any comments or questions from the board? All right, thank you very much. Next item is our insurance renewal with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and Glenda, I think, will present on that.
Amber mentioned this in her budget message, but we did receive our numbers from the NCACC, and so the total, I just wanted to get the consensus, make sure everybody was okay before we signed off, because even though we want to adopt it or have to pay till after July, we have to say, yes, we're going to do this. So the total number with our workers' comp and our auto liability, and deducting the estimated the credits that we get, is going to be $766,681.02, which was an increase from last year. But on a bright side, our workers' comp did go down, so that was a plus. I hadn't expected that because they didn't mention it when we did, but it did go down, so that helped us with an increase on the other side. So I just wanted to present that, let you know I did receive the numbers, and moving it to action then at the next meeting is fine. It doesn't have to be today.
All righty.
Anybody
Have
has
any
any
questions on
questions?
that?
What was our total increase?
The total difference from last year to this year was $52,823.02. I thought somebody might ask all. I made a note.
Okay, any questions from the board? Any other questions? Okay, the next topic on our discussion agenda is transportation for DSS and senior services. And I think, Glenda, you're also presenting
I think I'm the next several, so I'll just stand here till we're finished. Yes, we did put out an RFP for transportation, as we do every year, for DSS and senior services. This year we didn't receive any new responses. We did receive our request to renew for the Wyvetti and Gentle Care. Stacy and Vicky and I kind of looked over, and it appears that, it's the increase that they asked for, which Wyvetti was around 42 cents per mile, Gentle Care was around 50. It's kind of like with everything, with the gas prices, the insurance rates for them, we kind of expected it to happen. So we're just asking that the board, for the board's approval to renew the 2 contracts with Wyvetti and Gentle Care. Vicky and Stacy are very pleased with their services, so we see no reason not to renew their contracts.
All righty, board questions, comments? You want that action at the next meeting?
Next meeting is fine. That's fine. I tried to get them on so we wouldn't have to worry about moving anything. So we could do, just as long as we do it before July is fine.
Okay. The next one is the offer for surplus tax foreclosed property.
Instead of asking for money, I'm going to try to bring us a little bit in. Richard and I have discussed this one. It's a piece of property. Actually, it's 3 parcels that's on Crybaby Lane. And we've had several people, I know, it's in Madison. And they have, we've got several calls. A lot of people have showed interest. I think some have looked at it and decided they don't want to tackle it. But we have received an offer from a gentleman that came in last week, and he's put an offer in on all 3 parcels of $8,000. I spoke with Richard, and he confirms that he thinks this is an acceptable offer for kind of the work that needs to be done on the property. So I'm just asking the board for your consensus to, start the bid process of running it in the newspaper, see if anybody else bids, and go from there. But we have to have a starting point somewhere.
Great. Anybody have a problem with that consensus?
Where is this?
It is in the Madison area. I think it's off of, don't quote me, but I think it's like 772 Dillard area. It's an easement that goes in, and it's kind of little lots down in there. I think one of them is like a 2-acre, but the other 2 adjoin it. I think there is a residential structure, but my understanding there's going to have to be a lot of cleanup of the property.
All righty.
So if you all are good, I'm going to try to get it in the paper
Good.
this week.
We're good with that. Hey, the next one on the discussion agenda is the senior meals program, and Glenda's still here.
I'm still here. This one is for our senior meals program, and we would like to renew with the Second Harvest Food Bank. Their meals went from $4.10 to $4.20. Vicki and I think that's a reasonable increase, so we would just like to proceed with renewing the contract with them. She mentioned that there probably would be some other meals that they could provide like they did this past year, the frozen type meals in areas that they don't do a lot of the everyday delivery, but she won't know that information until next week. But we would proceed just like we normally did last year with those. We'll make sure they're the cheapest and go from there. So if you all are happy with that, then we'll put this one on action for next meeting also.
Okay, everybody good with that? All righty, thank you very much, Glenda.
I think that's all of mine.
I think that's enough for one day.
Yeah, me too.
I think the last item on our discussion agenda is approval of sale of Board of Education land at South Stokes. And Amber, you're going to talk about this, I believe.
Shortly. So the Board of Education, they're trying to sell a small piece of land at South Stokes that's encroaching on another landowner's property. So the landowner is interested in purchasing that small piece from the Board of Education. They just need Board of Commissioner approval in order to proceed, because the Board of Commissioners have the first right of refusal if they want to refuse.
Okay, everybody look at that in the packet. You have any questions?
Yeah, I have
Gonna start.
I
Go
do
ahead.
have a question.
Yeah, go ahead,
I mean,
Ron.
I looked at it, Mr. Chairman, and of course, I went to school at South Stokes, just was at a baseball game last week over there. I went and I was trying to piece exactly the photographic map of the little, I think it was what, 0.155 acres or something like that for $900.
Yes. Yeah. 0.155 acre.
And I saw a little tree line. Can you tell me exactly where that is situated next to the school or at the school? Because going there all my life, I'm trying to piece together where exactly that piece is. Because I actually rode by there yesterday trying to figure out what little track that is.
It looks like it's in the woods, backs right up to
Well,
The road.
yeah, I saw the woods.
So that person has something that's encroaching on the school property, right? That's why they want to buy it.
Yes.
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 I think you'd have to mark it in order to see exactly where it's at. Is it marked or flagged or anything?
I didn't see anything yesterday.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I talked to Dr. Rice on the phone, and he said that they passed that along to their attorney, and they've looked at it. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly
So
where
they
it
don't
is.
think they'll need that for a future well site with their luck on wells.
Maybe they might need the $900 or something. Or to be honest, I don't know. I can ask. I can ask for.
Yeah, I
us to-
mean, is it on the school road that takes you, you got a soccer practice field on the left as you turn in the first gravel driveway to go up to the baseball and softball fields. I mean, exactly, I'd like to
A
know
more accurate
exactly where it's
description.
at.
Yeah. Okay.
You wanna go out there and meet somebody and get them to show it to
I'd
you?
love to,
That'd be better probably to do
Yeah.
that.
We can set that up.
yeah, that'd
Okay.
be good.
Have their maintenance guys or
I'd
somebody
like
do it.
to see that. Thank you.
And you just want to go ahead and move it to action. That way, you could still, have time to look at it. Or would you prefer to move it to back to discussion for the next meeting?
No.
Is action
no,
okay? Okay.
I think we moved to action. I'd just like to see.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Action for next time, is that?
Dr. Rice can just send somebody
To show it. Yeah.
to show me exactly where it is.
Okay. I'll make a
I mean,
note of
I'm
that.
only 2 minutes from the school, so.
Well, okay.
Go look.
Did they request it?
I did send it to our attorney's office as well.
We
So
prefer
I don't know
you
if,
to go check it out for
if
us.
y'all know where it is, but
It's like a back corner of it. I pulled up the PIN number on the GIS. I can get back out of it now. And it's like part of the school. Let me see if I can pull it up. Sorry, my internet's not wanting to work good here.
Well, I know they were having years ago problems with the tree line behind the football stadium.
Yeah.
That caused
Yeah,
a
Linda's got it.
lot of problems.
Linda's got it.
Here's the school property.
6934 4A.
And then there's a
Y'all
house.
had more updates, so pending.
Apparently it's this, it looks like maybe a garage is encroached on that side. That's what it looks by the map that they provided to you all.
Okay.
So apparently it's, but here's the baseball,
That's the baseball.
baseball field, it's right there. Apparently they wanted to do this by what they submitted to you all. If that
Looks
helps
like
you.
to me that's the tree line going down toward the next, it's on the same side of the road.
Yes, that's what it appears to me too, because this looks like a track. Is that right?
Is this what you have? It's like here.
On the back?
Yeah, because the Covingtons own this lot.
I said,
Just.
Yeah, we'll just let them
it can be
decide
a
then.
custodian.
Yeah.
I don't care who
What
it
is
is, just somebody to show me where it is.
okay.
I mean,
Yes, sir.
I'm not,
Maybe, but
the reason I ask
they
is
own
I
that
have
property.
relatives that live and some of them own,
Yeah.
and I know it's not theirs. I
Okay.
just don't want to be in a conflict of interest if it was somebody's,
Right.
you know, I just-
Yeah, see, that's weird though. Like, what is that? They don't own the property.
They're saying that they're gonna do this.
it becomes much problem over $900.
Not a bad price, that's 10,000 an acre.
Yeah,
so
I know. I agree. I
roughly.
don't see that thing.
Okay.
If you just said,
So they didn't ask for it to be on action at this meeting, did they? Or,
They said if possible, but that's just preference. They're not on a time
okay,
deadline or anything.
we'll do an
Yeah,
action
maybe.
next time after Ron
Yeah.
looks at it. All right. Anything else on that item? Okay, we'll move to the action agenda, and the first one is the Walnut Coast Senior Center Advisory Council, and at the last meeting, Keith Wood was nominated to serve on that board, and no more applications have been received, so
make a motion, we close nominations.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we need to poll.
Keith.
Keith,
Keith?
I can't vote for it.
Ken.
Oh, yes, you can.
I guess I better, because they asked me at Want Cove Saturday, have you been approved yet?
You tell them tomorrow, you do.
Or
it.
Okay, and then the last item on our action agenda is the proclamation recognizing EMS Week. Motion to approve.
Proclamation.
Second.
I was actually gonna read that, and then my screen went blank, so
God,
somebody's got it up, we ought to read it before we approve it, I think, would be a good idea. My screen went out for some reason, so.
I'll read it. Hang on, wait a minute, right back here. Here we EMS Week proclamation to designate the week of May 21 through 27, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas Stokes County Emergency Medical Services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, with a career of volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Stokes County Board of Commissioners, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21 through 27, 23 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendenhall. Did we already make a motion to approve that in a second? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No, it passes unanimously. I think we didn't move anything else to action, did we?
No, we didn't.
So our next thing, we got a short closed session, so if you'd give the rationale, Amber, I'd appreciate it.
To consider and take action with respect to the position to be taken by the county in negotiating the price or other material terms of an agreement for the acquisition or lease of real property pursuant to General Statute 143-318.1185, and to consider the initial employment or appointment of an individual to any office or position other than a vacancy in the Board of County Commissioners or any other public body, or to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, and fitness of any public officer or employee other than a member of the Board of Commissioners or some other public body pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A6.
Thank you very much. Again, motion to go into closed session.
Motion, we enter closed session.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're in closed session.
Make a motion, we adjourn. Oh, you haven't got it, you haven't
Turn
got
that
it.
camera
Tell
on.
me.
You're good now.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're adjourned.